Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live presentation titled Develop OPC Apps with REST API. My name is Randy, and I am the presenter today. In this webinar, we're going to be discussing programming OPC applications. We will talk about toolkits that are available, the pros and the cons. We'll talk about the REST API toolkit, and I use the term toolkit very loosely because it's not really a toolkit. You'll see why right away. We will take a look at the server and client requirements, and I will show you a programming example using Python. At the very end, I will show you how to get a copy of this webinar recording. So here's where we're going. We have a couple of PLCs, and we're going to be using OPC to bring that data into OPC Expert. And then to get the data out into an application, we're going to be using REST API. So REST API is going to be used right over here. So we'll set this stuff up, and then we'll use REST API. So we're going to capture OPC data using OPC. So we have these OPC servers. Then we will collect this real-time data. And finally, after we've collected the real-time data, we will develop an application that you can then distribute. And I'll show you how to do that. The problem we have when we're developing applications is that, obviously, first of all, there are many OPC applications that are available today. And I mean a lot of OPC applications are available today. But no matter how many applications are already available, people always have to make custom or bespoke applications all the time. And that's why programmers are around to get this done for us. So we do need these custom applications. So your development options are to make your own toolkit. So you can develop your own toolkit from scratch, or you can use an existing free toolkit that you can download from somewhere. Or you can use the OPC Foundation toolkit, or buy a commercial toolkit using the OPC Foundation toolkit. So with both of this way and this way, you got to pay money to these companies. Or you can use REST API to get this done, which is what we will focus on today. But before talking about REST API, let me just talk about these toolkits that are available today. So there's some advantages and disadvantages. The big advantage is that they're very, very powerful. They're very configurable, and they all enable developers to control every aspect of the application. I said all, but I guess that depends on which toolkit you're using. So the whole point is they enable developers to have a lot of control. The disadvantages are, well, number one, the developer, you have to be a programmer. And the development is obviously complex, otherwise everyone would do it. And the development could take a long time. The developers also have to handle all OPC connection states, the subscriptions and the errors and the exceptions. So for example, when you're connected, everything is fine. When you're disconnected, the server goes away. You have to recognize the connection went away. You have to handle the subscriptions yourself. You have to unsubscribe. When you connect again, you have to resubscribe, re-enable the items. You have to handle all the errors and the exceptions that are coming to you. So you have to handle all the OPC server connections on your own as a developer. So there's quite a bit of work. Let's talk about REST API very specifically. So REST, representational state transfer, and REST API, it's an API conforming to the REST design. Okay, that's very nice. Now, this is secure. It can be secure over HTTP or HTTPS. And this is used in many, many industries. So not just automation at all, not just in manufacturing, but in every industry out there, from finance to Facebook to consumer to your house, security and so on. The REST API is used everywhere. And why? It's because it is completely independent of the hardware platform, meaning you can be on a PC, on a Mac, on a tablet, you can be on a phone, you can be on a PLC. So it's completely independent of the hardware platform. It's completely independent of the language. So no matter what language you choose to develop in, be it C, C++, C Sharp, maybe you want Python, maybe you want Java, JavaScript, it makes no difference whatsoever. REST API is available in all these languages and on every operating system. Windows, Unix, Linux, Solaris, Mac OS, iOS, it doesn't matter. They're all available. So REST API is everywhere, and it's meant for a stateless operation, which means you can close your application, open it back up, and it's like you never missed anything. And it's quite easy to implement and deploy, which is the entire reason why it is used so much. So let's take a look here at what's going on. We'll talk about the server side first. And on the server side, I'm not necessarily talking the OPC server side, but rather the REST API server, which is over here. So you realize this communication here might be OPC. The communication here is REST API. That means this guy here is a REST API server. So I'm talking about on this side here. You can use it on Windows Workstation with Windows XP all the way to Windows 11. So pretty much every version of Windows, or on Windows Server, Windows 2003 to Windows 2022. So up until the latest from something quite old. So it's available everywhere. And there's support for OPC UA and OPC Classic, meaning this one over here is connecting to the OPC server, which may be OPC UA, it may be OPC Classic, it really doesn't matter. It runs as a Windows service. So this guy here runs as a Windows service, which means it's completely automatic, it's always running, it starts with Windows, nobody needs to be logged on to Windows. If your computer reboots, it automatically begins running and providing data. And it manages all your OPC server connections, the connection, disconnection. If there's a disconnection, it automatically handles it. So in other words, from a REST API perspective, you don't need to do anything. Very, very important for stateless operation. You don't need to do anything. OPC Expert will actually let you know if you're connected or not, and it will automatically reconnect, resubscribe to everything that it needs. This is all done completely automatically. So is the security. The security is also handled completely automatically with the encryption and also the access control lists. Those are also handled. What that means is in here, so in this right here, you can set your own access control list, which means that you can say, based on whatever user there is here, I'm going to allow some people to connect, but not others. I would allow some people to read, but not write. I will allow others to read and write. So all of that is completely controlled over here. It's even as far as if you're connected with no security, you can do this, but if you're connected with security, you can do that. And you can do this all the way down to a very, very specific item. So to anything you can read, even the properties. And again, it uses only one port. You choose HTTP, HTTPS, or even both ports. So that is on the server side right here. Next, we'll talk about the client side, which is over here. But on the server side, this is what's going on here. Pretty much every version of Windows. Now, I know you're thinking, well, can I run this on Linux? Can I run this on Unix? No, this isn't meant to run on Unix. This is meant to run, this portion here is meant to run on Windows, which makes it very, very versatile. But these guys over here can be running anywhere. So on the client side, again, right up here, this one, the development is completely free. Again, you're using the REST API. It is free. There's no development cost. There's no toolkit. There's nothing. And it runs on any platform. So as I said, any hardware platform, from a PC to a phone to a PLC, on any language. whatever language you use is completely irrelevant to OPC Expert over here. Why? Because it's using REST API and on any operating system. This thing can be on any operating system, right? So it's completely free and you run it anywhere you want. It's very easy to develop with only a few lines of code. And again, there is nothing to download whatsoever. Over here, there's really nothing for you to download. You just connect over here with REST API, and that's available for free. And there are lots of REST API examples all over the web. It's not a question of not having enough documentation at all. And again, using only one incoming port. So that means over here, you're using only one port where you're going out, I should say outgoing. From here, this is an outgoing port. You go over to this OPC server. You get whatever you want. You're in complete you're in complete control, which is why you can do this on a phone and not have to ever open up any ports. So you can get to OPC, DA, HDA, UADA, UAHA. You can get all of them directly from your phone or from your whatever application. So that is on the client side. And by the way, folks, please keep the questions coming and I will answer them as we move along. Now, let me show you the architecture. So once again, what we're talking about here is this over here. So what I'll show you is the architecture for this one over here. Remember, the OPC server is separate. You'll get this separate. You'll get this one here separate. So the question is, how does this work right here? So what I'm showing you here is all inside OPC Expert. So we begin with OPC DA and UA clients. And that's how OPC Expert ingests data. That goes into an intelligent engine. So that's in the intelligent engine. And then anything that's in here is, anything that's in this intelligent engine is accessible via this REST API server. So anybody coming here can get to anything in here. So if there's something here, calculations, for example, data from OPC UA, DA, you can get access to all of that. Now, of course, you can also ingest data with MQTT. And speaking of MQTT, you've got a subscriber, a broker, there's even a publisher. But once the data is in this intelligent engine, you can send it to the broker, or you can send it to Microsoft SQL or CSV files, whatever it is you want. You can send it to Azure if you want, or Amazon. So you can go back and forth. Again, what that means is this REST API server has access to not just real-time data, but also historical data. All of that is accessible to this REST API server because it's accessible right here. And again, all of this is within OPC Expert. You can also bring data in via OPC, other OPC alarms events again, or MQTT. You can send this data out, of course, using an MQTT publisher, as I talked about. There's a DA server, a UA server. You can get this data with Excel. So once again, everything in here is accessible to all of these guys. Now, it's also very important. If you want to lock something here and not give people access, you can control the access control list. You have control over the ACL, the access control list. So what you can do there is, depending on how somebody's connecting to you, you can say, look, I will allow connection this way, but not that way. So it all depends on what you actually want. Now, again, all of this is inside OPC Expert, but in this particular presentation, we're going to be talking about DA and UA in, REST API out. Don't forget, you can also, this is showing you can read data out, but you can also write data back. So it's completely bi-directional. You can read and you can write. So let's have a look at what's going on. So we've got a couple of PLCs and we can bring data in via OPC UA. Maybe this is embedded. Maybe it's a separate application. Maybe this is a UA server. Maybe it's a DA server. Maybe it's an application. Maybe it's not, whatever. You're bringing data here, DA or UA. Now, this guy can take out the data, remember, using UA or DA or REST API, of course, MQTT and so on. And of course, it runs as a Windows service. Now, you've seen already, and we've seen this in previous webinars, that you can connect to OPC Expert via OPC UA. So if you're connecting via OPC UA, you can run your applications anywhere that OPC UA is supported, which is pretty much anywhere. So your client apps, your client applications can be right here. And this can be, of course, on any platform or whatever it is that you're using for your OPC UA. So that's on the OPC UA side. But let's talk about REST API. So we can take information out from here using REST API. What that means is, for example, you can run this on a web app, and it can be on Chrome, Edge, Firefox, Mozilla, Safari, whatever it is you want. I just gave some examples here, but your web apps, your web applications can be anything you actually want. So it will run inside a web server. But you don't have to do that inside a web server. You can actually make your own application, your own development. And of course, you can put this on any operating system, on any hardware. So Android, iOS, iPadOS, and of course, it can be on macOS, on Unix, on Windows. It can be anywhere, right? And you can do this on your own. And these applications can really be using any language. I gave some examples here, but they can be with any language, C, C++, C#, and so on, right? So they can be anywhere. In this specific example, I will show you a Python example. I'll build that from scratch. So we'll do Python, but really you should know it can be from any language. OPC Expert will also create automated code for you for a whole bunch of different languages, which we will see right away. So this is the architecture. This is what's going on. So with this, let's go to a very, very specific example, which is what I'll show you here. We begin with a couple of controllers, and we're going to get the data via OPC. And once again, we're going to send that out using REST API. So I will develop the application here, and we will set up OPC Expert here. So step number one, of course, is you've got to get these OPC servers. So we'll have OPC servers. So that's these guys right here. That's step number one. To capture this data, then we'll collect the real-time data. That's actually done right over here. And finally, we will develop the application over here using Python. So let's go have a look at what this looks like. So here we are. I've got a computer, and before I start this up, I want to show you, it's quite important actually. We'll open the file location, and what you see is it's just OPC Expert. It's just an executable. And what we're seeing here is nothing from OPC Expert, of course, is running. So there's nothing here running from OPC Expert. So we haven't done anything. If I double click this, OPC Expert automatically extracts all the resources it needs, everything it needs, it extracts them. So, you know, when you're done, you can just delete these if you're no longer interested in OPC Expert. So it's very, very easy to put on your computers. And here you can see everything that OPC Expert has right over here. All right. So now let's get into OPC Expert. I'll put this on the side so you can see this a little bit better. And here is our task manager here. Okay, we'll get a little bit more room. Yeah, that's good enough. All right, so here we go. And there is OPC Expert. So opcexpert.exe, just so you understand, that's this GUI over here. And since I don't want to overlap with Task Manager, just make it a little bit smaller. Here we go. So this is this GUI right here. Over here, we have OPC Expert. That's just the system tray. And I will exit this. So there we go. Just so there was OPC Expert System Tray. I just exited it just so you see it's very clean. We just have one thing running. It's running as a user called admin because that's the user I'm logged on as right now. Okay, so we browsed this computer and we see we have 4 OPC DA servers from Iconics, Intellution. There is a Kepware one. There's also Softing. So I got 4 DA servers and I see 2 UA servers, one from OPC Expert, one from Kepware. So since we want data with both OPC DA and UA, here we go. So I'm just choosing these, and it doesn't really matter what you choose, just like this. And I'll connect with UA. So you've all seen this before if you've come to previous webinars. Here we go. So we are subscribed to 2 items using OPC DA and another 2 items using OPC UA. OPC Expert shows you it doesn't matter how you bring the data in. Now, this is in OPC Expert. So we want to extract it. We want to get that data out. So what I will do is set it up. So we'll go to Tools, Servers and Services. Here, I will say I want REST API, and I'll run it as a Windows service, so REST API, and it's also setting up this OPC Expert UA server to run as a service. When I click Apply, remember we did REST API and OPC Expert UA server, and you will see right over here that OPC Expert starts up these services, starts and stops them because it's testing them to make sure that they're running properly. So it just starts and stops them for just a few times. As it's testing, you can see it starting up. It's telling you it's testing and so on. And once it is done, then we have these 2 servers up. Here they are, and everything is good. So we've got this REST API server, and you can see it's running as a system account, and OPC Expert UA server running as the system account. OPC Expert is running as administrator. Now that we have this, we will just do a quick test. So to do a test, all I really need to do is right-click and trend. So I'll trend this. And this is actually a test because this trend is already using REST API. This trend is actually a REST API client. So this trend is a REST API client. Here we go. And we are, so let me just, maybe I'll zoom in like this. And we can see both real-time data. So here we go. I'll stick it to the right-hand side. We see the real-time data. I'll just zoom out a little bit. Here we go. So we can see the real-time data coming in. And this already proves REST API is working. So in order to get, just to show you, I can go to, for example, open on local browser. Now in this case, I've got Edge installed here. And sure enough, we see the trend coming in on Edge. Why? It's actually the same trend. It's exactly the same trend, but running on Edge. Why? Because this trend here, this trend uses JavaScript, and you've got access to it. So this is actually written in JavaScript. So it's a JavaScript example for you connecting to OPC Expert via REST API. And because it's using JavaScript, you can run it on your browser. So Edge, but it could just as easily run on Chrome or Firefox or whatever it is you want. So there it is. You can see it running. Now we can also, if you try this on your phone, so if you try this on your phone, at least just put the phone up to it and give it a go. What you'll see, you won't be able to connect because it's going to give you this URL right here, which is my computer. Obviously, you can't connect to my computer right now. But if you run this on your own computer, you will see this trend on your phone. You'll actually see this on your phone. And of course, that should be very clear to you that nothing was downloaded to your phone, and it is completely free to run on your phone. Okay, so here I will, so let me just stop this trending. Stop this just to make it simpler. Here we go. So now we've done our test. Trending is working, which means our REST API is working. And now what I want to do is write some Python code. So I've already installed Python. Here it is. This is using the idle environment. And I will double click it. So this is in Python again. Here we go. And in here, I'm going to go File, New File. Okay, so I've got New File. There we go. And now I can start programming, except, gosh, I don't even know what to write. So I don't really know. How do I get started? Well, OPC Expert can generate code on its own. So for example, here we are looking at Kepware Flow, and I can watch, I'll right click, and I can right click anywhere on this blue line, by the way. Right click, REST API command, and I will generate a code snippet to read data using Python. Now I will right click and paste. And here is my code. So OPC Expert automatically generated code. We'll see what it does, and then I'll walk you through it so you have a better understanding. So here we go. Let me just save this first. So we'll File. We will save. I'll save it to the desktop so you see what's going on. We'll call this sample. There it is. Oh, okay, sample. All right, so there we go. We've got the code right here. And let's see what's going on in this code. See if we can figure this out. So what we see here, in fact, let me just run it first just so you see what it looks like. So we'll run it. Then it will be more obvious. Here we go. There's the time. And we can see that we're connected to this particular item right over here. We can see its value. We can see the quality. 0 means good in OPC UA. And we can see the timestamp, which is in UTC. So we can see the value, the quality, and the timestamp. And you can see that it keeps on going. Now you notice that this is showing us lots of decimals. This is a float, also known as a single. Let's take a look at the code. So we have some imports first. Then just a couple of comments to let you know that if you do see some errors, here's what you do, including command line options right over here. All right, here we start the code. So while true, meaning this is going to go on forever. We're going to get, so we get from here. Now you recognize, maybe you recognize we were looking at Kepware's flow. So there it is right over here. So it's flow. So here you see flow, and this is coming from this OPC UA server. Now, what's cool is when you do that, you get a JSON package. So you get a JSON package right here, and I'll show you what it looks like. So here I will copy, and let me go to Edge. And we'll hit enter. And this is what the packet looks like. This is the JSON. This is JSON right over here. So all the data is coming in. You can see there's an ID, there's a value, there's a quality, there's a source timestamp, server timestamp, data type, which is single, in this case, single precision or float. Now, when I refresh this, look at this. you can actually see, check this out here. The value is constantly changing. See, the value is changing. You can see the timestamp is changing. Timestamp over here, right? So we can do this for multiple items as well. But this is exactly what is coming in. So because it's coming in with JSON, Python has built-in routines. So in Python, there are built-in routines to take this apart. You don't have to do this yourself. So we parse a response, JSON object, it loads it. And what we do is just go through and we begin to take it apart. So there's the item ID. We're going to take the item ID. We take the value. We take the quality. We take that timestamp, in this case, source timestamp, and we print it. And then we do this over and over and over and over, right? So what you actually see, again, when we run it, here is what it looks like. So you can see the values are constantly changing. Now, if you want something different, look, I'll go back here. I'll go back to RAMP, for example, and this is actually from a different server. So this is a UA server. This right here, you might recognize, is a UA server. So this is coming from UA. Now, watch how easy it is to go to a DA server. So we'll go to random. We'll go to REST API command, generate code snippet, to read. In fact, I don't even have to do that. I just copy the item ID. It's only the item ID that's different. And I will paste it in here. Right click, paste. And here's the new item. This is what it looks like for a DA server. There's the prog ID right here. And there is the item ID over here. And look at this. I run this. And there you go. You can see the values. Now, just to show you what's going on here, because, you know, what you think is, oh, of course, OPC Expert has to be running. Well, let's close this. OPC Expert doesn't have to run, but more importantly, watch. I'm going to go to Iconics. I've got in here textual, and you can see there's months right over here. So the item ID here, I'm not even going to subscribe to it, but the item ID is textual.months. So I will close OPC Expert. Now OPC Expert is not running. Once again, I will run this, and you can see, even though OPC Expert is not running, we're still able to get this data. So we're able to get this data. Not only that, I can go in here, and remember we had textual.months right over here. And sure enough, if I run this, and what I like about this one is you can see very, very clearly. There you go, December, January, March, April. This is no longer done. And the data is coming in. So all of that data is coming in. Now, the only reason that you're seeing doubles in here is simply because it's polling. It's getting the data. With REST API, you're only able to poll, obviously. So it's not polling at exactly the same time as the value is changing. But there you go. And if you do it faster, then it will look different, obviously. Okay, so what we saw is that we can just add these, and we are just connecting directly with this. Why? Because I've got the services running here. There's a REST API server, and you can see that it's running as a service. So it's running the service. That's why it's always up. So there you have it. What we've done is and I should put this back up. What we saw is that we have OPC servers. We brought the data into OPC Expert. We then generated code to create a REST API application using Python. So it's a Python application using REST API. We were able to generate code automatically. And of course, you can change it as much as you want. It's pretty easy to take a look at. And of course, you can both read and you can write. So you can read and you can write. So there's no problem doing that whatsoever. So there you go. There you have it. And by the way, this is really the end of the formal part. I'll just say a few more words here just as a conclusion to give some light to the people that pay our checks here about OPC Training Institute and OPC Rescue and OPC Expert, just so you understand what's going on. And then I'll go back and answer your questions. So to get automated troubleshooting, you can download OPC Rescue and OPC Expert, which is really like OPC Rescue on some serious steroids. If you download OPC Expert, of course, this is all free to download. You can trend, bridge, you can do all of these things directly. And you can trend. We saw the trending. We saw REST API in this specific case. But all of this is available when you download this stuff for free. Now, to get some more hands-on learning, you can earn your certified OPC professional designation by attending one of our hands-on workshops where you learn how to configure COM, DCOM, OPC UA. You'll learn to troubleshoot OPC systems, how to properly secure OPC systems, and you learn OPC best practices. When you do this, you actually get two computers, not just one, but you get two computers that you configure yourself and you troubleshoot the problems yourself. You see the problems, you create the problems. When you're done making problems, we create problems for you. So you fix it, we break it. You fix it again, we break it. It's really a lot of fun, and you start to develop a structured methodology to do your troubleshooting. At the end, when you get out, you will know exactly what to do with your OPC installation. You can also come to one of our upcoming workshops. These are live remote classes with a live instructor, and they're very, very interactive. And again, because they are remote, there is no travel. So no travel at all. You can do this from your office or from home. We've got public classes where you're there with other people from other industries. And we also have private training as well if you want to train your people very specifically. Of course, we can also travel to your site if that's what you want. So yes, we still travel and we still go out and do this in person. You can look at dates at www.opcti.com. We're also going to send you an email in the next few days. So this email will have a link to this webinar recording, so you can take a listen. You can see what there is. You can download OPC Expert, so everything I've shown you here, you can download it, and you will see some short videos showing REST API examples. So including if you want to try out Python, how to install the idle environment, and how to run the application. So it's pretty cool, actually. You'll see how to do that. They're pretty short videos, and they get right to the point. If you have any questions, you've got our contact information. One more thing about downloading OPC Expert or just before I get to the webinar recording, just make sure, and I'll show you this. When you download OPC Expert, or to know if you need to download it, make sure you've got version 9.4.2403. So if you've got an earlier version, it may not have REST API. So if you don't have it, just download the latest one. All right, let's get to your questions. Okay. Cindy, I see the first question. which is, can you handle other languages other than Python? So let me just show you. I will expand this. And short answer is yes. So let's connect over to Iconics again. And we go to, so that doesn't matter with UA, but right click, more, REST API command, generate code snippet, read. So you can see that there's automated code generation for C#, Java, JavaScript, VBA, and Python. If you want other languages, just let us know, but it doesn't matter. These calls are pretty much the same from every language. And if you want some examples, we can provide them for you. But see, for example, let's take C#. Now, I don't have Visual Studio here. Doesn't really matter. Let's go to Notepad. And here we go. And there's the code for you that's available for you. So you can see this is C# code. Now, if you notice a string URL, maybe this looks familiar to you. It should, because it's exactly the same as what we saw before. And that's right here. So we're reading, and this specific item right here. So that's for ramp. So there you go. Maybe this is a bit easier. Right? So all of this is done, and you can get this automated code generation. Now, also very, very important, something I said earlier, in C#, what do you need to license from OPC Expert? And the answer is nothing, zero. This application can run and I can deploy it as many times as I want. There is absolutely no cost. Why? Because you're using REST API. Okay, looks like we actually ran out of time here. But once again, everybody, we're going to send you an email with some links so you can download this webinar recording. You can take a look at OPC Expert. There's a link to download it, and you'll get some short videos showing you very specific REST API examples. If you have any more questions, just send us an email or give us a shout, give us a phone call, and we will give you a hand. We've got another webinar a month from now. Until then, I wish you the best of luck with your OPC projects, and I hope to see you in a month. Thanks again, everybody. Bye-bye.